from noiseful arms, and acts of prowess done in tournament or tilt, Sir Percivale, whom Arthur and his knights called the Pure, had passed into the silent life of prayer, praise, fast, and arms, and leaving for the cowl the helmet in an abbey far away from Camelot, there and not long after died. And one, a fellow monk among the rest, Ambrosius, loved him much beyond the rest, and honoured him, and wrought into his heart a way by love that wakened love within, to answer that which came. And as they sat between a world-old yew tree, darkening half the cloisters, on a gustful April morn that puffed the swaying branches into smoke above them, ere the summer when he died, the monk Ambrosius questioned Percivale. "O brother, I have seen this yew tree smoke, spring after spring, for 100 years. For never have I known the world without, nor ever strayed beyond the pale. But thee, when first thou camest, such a courtesy spake through the limbs and in the voice, I knew for one of those who eat in Arthur's hall. For good ye are and bad, and like to coins, some true, some light, but every one of you stamped with the image of the king. And now tell me, what drove thee from the Table Round, my brother? Was it earthly passion crossed?" "Nay," said the knight, "for no such passion mine, but the sweet vision of the Holy Grail drove me from all vain glories, rivalries, and earthly heats that spring and sparkle out among us in the jousts, while women watch who wins, who falls, and waste the spiritual strength within us, better offered up to heaven, to whom the monk, the Holy Grail. I trust we are green in heaven's eyes, but here too much we moulder, as to things without, I mean. Yet one of your own knights, a guest of ours, told us of this in our refectory, but spake with such a sadness and so low, we heard not half of what he said. What is it? The phantom of a cup that comes and goes?" "Nay, monk, what phantom?" answered Percivale. The cup itself, from which our Lord drank at the last sad supper with his own. This from the blessed land of Aromat, after the day of darkness, when the dead went wandering o'er Moriah, the good saint Arimathean Joseph journeying brought to Glastonbury, where the winter thorn blossoms at Christmas, mindful of our Lord, and there awhile it bode. And if a man could touch or see it, he was healed at once by faith of all his ills. But then the times grew to such evil that the holy cup was caught away to heaven and disappeared. To whom the monk, "From our old books I know that Joseph came of old to Glastonbury, and there the heathen prince Arviragus gave him an isle of marsh whereon to build. And there he built with wattles from the marsh a lonely church in days of yore. For so they say, these books of ours, but seem mute of this miracle, far as I have read. But who first saw the holy thing today?" "A woman," answered Percivale, "a nun, and one no further off in blood from me than sister. And if ever holy maid with knees of adoration wore the stone, a holy maid, though never maiden glowed, but that was in her earlier maidenhood, with such a fervent flame of human love, which being rudely blunted, glanced and shot only to holy things. To prayer and praise she gave herself, to fast and arms. And yet, none as she was, the scandal of the court, sin against Arthur and the Table Round, and the strange sound of an adulterous race across the iron grating of her cell beat, and she prayed and fasted all the more. And he to whom she told her sins, or what her all but utter whiteness held for sin, a man well nigh 100 winters old, spake often with her of the Holy Grail, a legend handed down through 5 or 6, and each of these 100 winters old, from our Lord's time. And when King Arthur made his table round, and all men's hearts became clean for a season, surely he had thought that now the Holy Grail would come again. But sin broke out. Ah, Christ, that it would come and heal the world of all their wickedness. "O Father," asked the maiden, "might it come to me by prayer and fasting?" "Nay," said he, "I know not, for thy heart is pure as snow." And so she prayed and fasted, till the sun shone and the wind blew through her, and I thought she might have risen and floated when I saw her. For on a day she sent to speak with me, and when she came to speak, behold, her eyes, beyond my knowing of them, beautiful, beyond all knowing of them, wonderful, beautiful in the light of holiness. And, "O my brother Percivale," she said, "sweet brother, I have seen the Holy Grail. For waked at dead of night, I heard a sound as of a silver horn from o'er the hills blown, and I thought, it is not Arthur's use to hunt by moonlight, and the slender sound, as from a distance beyond distance, grew coming upon me. Oh, never harp nor horn, nor aught we blow with breath or touch with hand, was like that music as it came. And then streamed through my cell a cold and silver beam, and down the long beam stole the Holy Grail, rose red with beatings in it, as if alive, till all the white walls of my cell were dyed with rosy colours leaping on the wall. And then the music faded, and the Grail passed, and the beam decayed, and from the walls the rosy quiverings died into the night. So now the holy thing is here again among us, brother. Fast thou too and pray, and tell thy brother knights to fast and pray, that so perchance the vision may be seen by thee and those, and all the world be healed." Then leaving the pale nun, I spake of this to all men, and myself fasted and prayed always. And many among us many a week fasted and prayed even to the uttermost, expectant of the wonder that would be. And one there was among us, ever moved among us in white armour, Galahad. "God made thee good as thou art beautiful," said Arthur, when he dubbed him knight. And none in so young youth was ever made a knight till Galahad. And this Galahad, when he heard my sister's vision, filled me with amaze. His eyes became so like her own, they seemed hers, and himself her brother more than I. Sister or brother none had he, but some called him a son of Lancelot, and some said begotten by enchantment. Chatterers they, like birds of passage, piping up and down, and gape for flies. We know not whence they come, for when was Lancelot wanderingly lewd? But she, the one sweet maiden, shore away clean from her forehead all that wealth of hair which made a silken mat-work for her feet. And out of this she plaited broad and long a strong sword-belt, and wove with silver thread and crimson in the belt a strange device, a crimson grail within a silver beam, and saw the bright boy knight, and bound it on him, saying, "My knight, my love, my knight of heaven, O thou my love, whose love is one with mine, I, maiden, round thee, maiden, bind my belt. Go forth, for thou shalt see what I have seen, and break through all, till one will crown thee king far in the spiritual city." And as she spake, she sent the deathless passion in her eyes through him, and made him hers, and laid her mind on him, and he believed in her belief. Then came a year of miracle. O brother, in our great hall there stood a vacant chair, fashioned by Merlin ere he passed away, and carven with strange figures. And in and out the figures, like a serpent, ran a scroll of letters in a tongue no man could read. And Merlin called it the Siege Perilous, perilous for good and ill. For there, he said, no man could sit but he should lose himself. And once, by misadvertence, Merlin sat in his own chair. and so was lost. But he, Galahad, when he heard of Merlin's doom, cried, "If I lose myself, I save myself." Then on a summer night it came to pass, while the great banquet lay along the hall, that Galahad would sit down in Merlin's chair. And all at once, as there we sat, we heard a cracking and a riving of the roofs, and rending, and a blast, and overhead thunder. And in the thunder was a cry, and in the blast there smote along the hall a beam of light 7 times more clear than day. And down the long beam stole the Holy Grail, all over covered with a luminous cloud, and none might see who bare it, and it passed. But every knight beheld his fellow's face as in a glory. And all the knights arose, and staring at each other like dumb men stood, till I found a voice and sware a vow. I sware a vow before them all that I, because I had not seen the Grail, would ride a 12-month and a day in quest of it, until I found and saw it, as the nun my sister saw it. And Galahad sware the vow, and good Sir Bors, our Lancelot's cousin, sware. And Lancelot sware, and many among the knights, and Gawain sware, and louder than the rest. Then spake the monk Ambrosius, asking him, "What said the king? Did Arthur take the vow?" "Nay, for my lord," said Percivale, "the king was not in the hall, for early that same day 'scaped through a cavern from a bandit hold, an outraged maiden sprang into the hall, crying on help, for all her shining hair was smeared with earth, and either milky arm red rent with hooks of bramble, and all she wore torn as a sail that leaves the ropist torn in tempest. So the king arose and went to smoke the scandalous hive of those wild bees that made such honey in his realm. Howbeit some little of this marvel he too saw. Returning o'er the plain that then began to darken under Camelot, whence the king looked up, calling aloud, "Lo, there the roofs of our great hall are rolled in thunder smoke. Pray heaven they be not smitten by the bolt, for dear to Arthur was that hall of ours, and having there so oft with all his knights feasted, it was the stateliest under heaven. O brother, had you known our mighty hall which Merlin built for Arthur long ago, for all the sacred mount of Camelot, and all the dim rich city, roof by roof, tower after tower, spire beyond spire, by grove and garden lawn and rushing brook, climbs to the mighty hall that Merlin built. And 4 great zones of sculpture, set betwixt with many a mystic symbol, gird the hall. And in the lowest beasts are slaying men, and in the second men are slaying beasts, and on the third are warriors, perfect men, and on the fourth are men with growing wings, and over all one statue in the mould of Arthur, made by Merlin, with a crown and peaked wings pointed to the northern star. And eastward fronts the statue, and the crown and both the wings are made of gold, and flame at sunrise till the people in far fields, wasted so often by the heathen hordes, behold it crying, "We have still a king." And brother, had you known our hall within, broader and higher than any in all the lands, where 12 great windows blazon Arthur's wars, and all the light that falls upon the board streams through the 12 great battles of our king. Nay, one there is, and at the eastern end, wealthy with wandering lines of mount and mere, where Arthur finds the brown Excalibur, and also one to the west, and counter to it, and blank. And who shall blazon it? When and how? Oh, there perchance, when all our wars are done, the brand Excalibur will be cast away. So to this hall full quickly rode the king, in horror lest the work by Merlin wrought, dreamlike, should on the sudden vanish, wrapped in unremorseful folds of rolling fire. And in he rode, and up I glanced, and saw the golden dragon sparkling over all, and many of those who burnt the hold, their arms hacked, and their foreheads grimed with smoke, and seared followed. And in among bright faces ours, full of the vision, pressed. And then the king spake to me, being nearest, Percivale, because the hall was all in tumult, some vowing and some protesting, "What is this?" O brother, when I told him what had chanced, my sister's vision and the rest, his face darkened, as I have seen it more than once, when some brave deed seemed to be done in vain, darkened. And woe is me, my knights, he cried. Had I been here, ye had not sworn the vow. Bold was mine answer. Had thyself been here, my king, thou wouldst have sworn. Yea, yea, said he. Art thou so bold, and hast not seen the GRAIL? Nay, lord, I heard the sound, I saw the light. But since I did not see the holy thing, I swear a vow to follow it till I saw. Then, when he asked us, night by night, if any had seen it, all their answers were as one. Nay, lord, and therefore have we sworn our vows. Lo now, said Arthur, have ye seen a cloud? What go ye into the wilderness to see? Then Galahad on the sudden, and in a voice shrilling along the hall to Arthur, called, But I, Sir Arthur, saw the GRAIL. I saw the GRAIL, and heard a cry, O Galahad, and O Galahad, follow me. Ah, Galahad, Galahad, said the king, for such as thou art is the vision, not for these. Thy holy nun and thou hast seen a sign. Holier is none, my Percivale, than she, a sign to maim this order which I made. But ye that follow but the leader's bell, brother, the king was hard upon his knights. Tennyson is our fullest throat of song, and one hath sung, and all the dumb will sing. Lancelot is Lancelot, and hath overborne 5 knights at once, and every younger knight unproven holds himself as Lancelot, till overborne by one he learns. And ye, what are ye, Galahads? No, nor Percivales, for thus it pleased the king to range me close after Sir Galahad. Nay, said he, but men with strength and will to right the wronged, of power to lay the sudden heads of violence flat, knights that in 12 great battles splashed and dyed the strong white horse in his own heathen blood. But one hath seen, and all the blind will see. Go, since your vows are sacred, being made. Yet do ye know the cries of all my realm pass through this hall? How often, O my knights, your places being vacant at my side, this chance of noble deeds will come and go unchallenged, while ye follow wandering fires lost in the quagmire. Many of you, yea most, return no more. Ye think I show myself too dark a prophet. Come now, let us meet the morrow morn once more in one full field of gracious pastime, that once more the king, before he leave him for this quest, may count the yet unbroken strength of all his knights, rejoicing in that order which he made. So when the sun broke next from underground, all the great table of our Arthur closed and clashed in such a tourney, and so full, so many lances broken, never yet had Camelot seen the like since Arthur came. And I myself and Galahad, for a strength was in us from this vision, overthrew so many knights that all the people cried, and almost burst the barriers in their heat, shouting, Sir Galahad and Sir Percivale. But when the next day broke from underground, O brother, had you known our Camelot, built by old kings age after age, so old the king himself had feared that it would fall, so strange and rich and dim, for where the roofs tottered toward each other in the sky, met foreheads all along the pavement of those who watched us pass, and lower, and where the long rich galleries lady-laden waved the necks of dragons clinging to the crazy walls, thicker than drops from thunder, Showers of flowers fell as we passed, and men and boys astride on wyvern, lion, dragon, griffin, swan, at all the corners named us each by name, calling, "God-speed." But in the ways below the knights and ladies wept, and rich and poor wept, and the king himself could hardly speak for grief. And all in the middle street the queen who rode by Lancelot wailed and shrieked aloud, "This madness has come on us for our sins." So to the gate of the Three Queens we came, where Arthur's wars are rendered mystically, and thence departed every one his way. And I was lifted up in heart, and thought of all my late shown prowess in the lists, how strong my lance had beaten down the knights, so many and famous names. And never yet had heaven appeared so blue, nor earth so green, for all my blood danced in me, and I knew that I should light upon the Holy Grail. Thereafter the dark warning of our king, that most of us would follow wandering fires, came like a driving gloom upon my mind. And every evil word I had spoken once, and every evil thought I had thought of old, and every evil deed I ever did, awoke and cried, "This quest is not for thee." And lifting up mine eyes, I found myself alone, and in a land of sand and thorns, and I was thirsty even unto death. And I too cried, "This quest is not for thee." And on I rode, and when I thought my thirst would slay me, saw deep lawns, and then a brook with one sharp rapid, where the crisping white played ever back upon the sloping wave, and took both ear and eye. And o'er the brook were apple trees, and apples by the brook fallen, and on the lawns. "I will rest here," I said. "I am not worthy of the quest." But even while I drank the brook and ate the goodly apples, all these things at once fell into dust, and I was left alone and thirsting in a land of sand and thorns. And then behold a woman at a door spinning, and fair the house whereby she sat, and kind the woman's eyes and innocent, and all her bearing gracious. And she rose, opening her arms to me, as who should say, "Rest here." But when I touched her, lo, she too fell into dust and nothing, and the house became no better than a broken shed, and in it a dead babe, and also this fell into dust, and I was left alone. And on I rode, and greater was my thirst. Then flashed a yellow gleam across the world, and where it smote the ploughshare in the field, the ploughman left his ploughing, and fell down before it. Where it glittered on her pail, the milkmaid left her milking, and fell down before it. And I knew not why, but thought, "The sun is rising," though the sun had risen. Then was I ware of one that on me moved in golden armour, with a crown of gold about a casque all jewels, and his horse in golden armour jewelled everywhere. And on the splendour came, flashing me blind, and seemed to me the lord of all the world, being so huge. But when I thought he meant to crush me, moving on me, lo, he too opened his arms to embrace me as he came, and up I went and touched him, and he too fell into dust. And I was left alone and wearying in a land of sand and thorns. And I rode on and found a mighty hill, and on the top a city walled, the spires pricked with incredible pinnacles into heaven. And by the gateway stirred a crowd, and these cried to me climbing, "Welcome, Percivale, thou mightiest and thou purest among men." And glad was I and clomb, but found at top no man nor any voice. And thence I passed far through a ruinous city, and I saw that man had once dwelt there. But there I found only one man of an exceeding age. "Where is that goodly company," said I, "that so cried out upon me?" And he had scarce any voice to answer, and yet gasped, "Whence and what art thou?" And even as he spoke, fell into dust and disappeared. And I was left alone once more, and cried in grief, "Lo, if I find the Holy Grail itself, and touch it, it will crumble into dust." And thence I dropped into a lowly vale, low as the hill was high, and where the vale was lowest found a chapel, and thereby a holy hermit in a hermitage, to whom I told my phantoms. And he said, "O son, thou hast not true humility, the highest virtue, mother of them all. For when the Lord of all things made himself naked of glory for his mortal change, 'Take thou my robe,' she said, 'for all is thine.' And all her form shone forth with sudden light, so that the angels were amazed. And she followed him down, and like a flying star led on the grey-haired wisdom of the East. But her thou hast not known, for what is this thou thoughtest of thy prowess and thy sins? Thou hast not lost thyself to save thyself as Galahad." When the hermit made an end, in silver armour suddenly Galahad shone before us, and against the chapel door laid lance, and entered, and we knelt in prayer. And there the hermit slaked my burning thirst, and at the sacring of the Mass I saw the holy elements alone. But he, saw ye no more? I, Galahad, saw the Grail, the Holy Grail, descend upon the shrine. I saw the fiery face as of a child that smote itself into the bread, and went, and hither am I come. And never yet hath what thy sister taught me first to see, this holy thing, failed from my sight, nor come covered, but moving with me night and day, fainter by day, but always in the night blood red, and sliding down the blackened marsh blood red, and on the naked mountain top blood red, and in the sleeping mere below blood red. And in the strength of this I rode, shattering all evil customs everywhere, and passed through pagan realms and made them mine, and clashed with pagan hordes, and bore them down, and broke through all, and in the strength of this come victor. But my time is hard at hand, and hence I go, and one will crown me king far in the spiritual city. And come thou too, for thou shalt see the vision when I go." While thus he spake, his eye, dwelling on mine, drew me, with power upon me, till I grew one with him, to believe as he believed. Then, when the day began to wane, we went. There rose a hill that none but man could climb, scarred with 100 wintry watercourses, storm at the top, and when we gained it, storm round us and death, for every moment glanced his silver arms and gloomed. So quick and thick the lightnings here and there to left and right struck, till the dry old trunks about us, dead, yea, rotten with 100 years of death, sprang into fire. And all the base we found on either hand, as far as I could see, a great black swamp, and of an evil smell, part black, part whitened with the bones of men, not to be crossed save that some ancient king had built a way, where linked with many a bridge 1,000 piers ran into the great sea, and Galahad fled along them bridge by bridge. And every bridge, as quickly as he crossed, sprang into fire and vanished, though I yearned to follow, and thrice above him all the heavens opened and blazed with thunder, such as seemed shoutings of all the sons of God. And first at once I saw him far on the great sea, in silver shining armour starry clear, and o'er his head the holy vessel hung, clothed in white samite or a luminous cloud, and with exceeding swiftness ran the boat, if boat it were. I saw not whence it came, and when the heavens opened and blazed again, roaring, I saw him like a silver star. And had he set the sail, or had the boat become a living creature clad with wings? And o'er his head the holy vessel hung redder than any rose, a joy to me, for now I knew the veil had been withdrawn. Then, in a moment, when they blazed again opening, I saw the least of little stars down on the waste, and straight beyond the star I saw the spiritual city and all her spires and gateways in a glory like one pearl, no larger, though the goal of all the saints, strike from the sea, and from the star there shot a rose-red sparkle to the city, and there dwelt. And I knew it was the Holy Grail, which never eyes on earth again shall see. Then fell the floods of heaven, drowning the deep, and how my feet recrossed the deathful ridge no memory in me lives, but that I touched the chapel doors at dawn I know. And thence taking my war-horse from the holy man, glad that no phantom vexed me more, returned to whence I came, the gate of Arthur's wars. "O brother," asked Ambrosius, "for in sooth these ancient books, and they would win thee, teem, only I find not there this Holy Grail, with miracles and marvels like to these, not all unlike, which oftentimes I read, who read but on my breviary with ease, till my head swims, and then go forth and pass down to the little thorpe that lies so close, and almost plastered like a martin's nest to these old walls, and mingle with our folk, and knowing every honest face of theirs, as well as ever shepherd knew his sheep, and every homely secret in their hearts, delight myself with gossip and old wives, and ills and aches and teethings, lyings in and mirthful sayings, children of the place, that have no meaning half a league away, or lulling random squabbles when they rise, chafferings and chatterings at the market cross. Rejoice, small man, in this small world of mine, yea, even in their hens and in their eggs. O brother, saving this Sir Galahad, came ye on none but phantoms in your quest, no man or woman? Then Percivale, all men to one so bound by such a vow, and women were as phantoms, O my brother. Why wilt thou shame me to confess to thee how far I faltered from my quest and vow? For after I had lain so many nights a bedmate of the snail and eft and snake in grass and burdock, I was changed to wan and meagre, and the vision had not come. And then I chanced upon a goodly town, with one great dwelling in the middle of it. Thither I made, and there was I disarmed by maidens each as fair as any flower. But when they led me into hall, behold, the princess of that castle was the one brother, and that one only, who had ever made my heart leap. For when I moved of old a slender page about her father's hall, and she a slender maiden, all my heart went after her with longing. Yet we twain had never kissed a kiss or vowed a vow. And now I came upon her once again, and one had wedded her, and he was dead, and all his land and wealth and state were hers. And while I tarried, every day she set a banquet richer than the day before by me, for all her longing and her will was toward me as of old, till one fair morn, I walking to and fro beside a stream that flashed across her orchard underneath the castle walls, she stole upon my walk, and calling me the greatest of all knights, embraced me, and so kissed me the first time, and gave herself and all her wealth to me. Then I remembered Arthur's warning word, that most of us would follow wandering fires, and the quest faded in my heart. Anon, the heads of all her people drew to me with supplication both of knees and tongue. We have heard of thee, thou art our greatest knight. Our Lady says it, and we well believe. Wed thou our lady, and rule over us, and thou shalt be as Arthur in our land. O me, my brother, but one night my vow burnt within me, so that I rose and fled, but wailed and wept and hated mine own self, and even the holy quest, and all but her. Then after I was joined with Galahad, cared not for her, nor anything upon earth. Then said the monk, Poor men, when Yule is cold, must be content to sit by little fires. This am I, so that ye care for me ever so little, and blessed be heaven that brought thee here to this poor house of ours, where all the brethren are so hard, to warm my cold heart with a friend. But oh, the pity to find thine own first love once more, to hold her a wealthy bride within thine arms, or all but hold, and then cast her aside, forgoing all her sweetness like a weed. For we that want the warmth of double life, we that are plagued with dreams of something sweet beyond all sweetness in a life so rich. Ah, blessed Lord, I speak too earthly wise, seeing I never strayed beyond the cell, but live like an old badger in his earth, with earth about him everywhere, despite all fast and penance. Saw ye none beside, none of your knights? Yea, so, said Percivale. One night, my pathway swerving east, I saw the pelican on the cask of our Sir Bors, all in the middle of the rising moon, and toward him spurred and hailed him, and he me, and each made joy of either. Then he asked, Where is he? Hast thou seen him, Launcelot? Once, said good Sir Bors, he dashed across me, mad, and maddening what he rode, and when I cried, Ridest thou then so hotly on a quest so holy? Launcelot shouted, Stay me not, I have been the sluggard, and I ride apace, for now there is a lion in the way. So vanished. Then Sir Bors had ridden on softly, and sorrowing for our Launcelot, because his former madness, once the talk and scandal of our table, had returned. For Launcelot's kith and kin so worship him, that ill to him is ill to them, to Bors beyond the rest. He well had been content not to have seen, so Launcelot might have seen, the holy cup of healing, and indeed, being so clouded with his grief and love, small heart was his after the holy quest. If God would send the vision, well. If not, the quest and he were in the hands of heaven, and then, with small adventure met, Sir Bors rode to the lonest tract of all the realm, and found a people there among the crags, our race and blood, a remnant that were left Paynim amid their circles, and the stones they pitch up straight to heaven. And their wise men were strong in that old magic which can trace the wandering of the stars, and scoffed at him and this high quest as at a simple thing, told him he followed, almost Arthur's words, a mocking fire. What other fire than he, whereby the blood beats and the blossom blows, and the sea rolls, and all the world is warmed? And when his answer chafed them, the rough crowd, hearing he had a difference with their priests, seized him, and bound him, and plunged him into a cell of great piled stones. And lying bounden there in darkness through innumerable hours, he heard the hollow ringing heavens sweep over him, till by miracle, what else, heavy as it was, a great stone slipped and fell, such as no wind could move, and through the gap glimmered the streaming scud. Then came a night, still as the day was loud, and through the gap the 7 clear stars of Arthur's Table Round. For, brother, so one night, because they roll through such a round in heaven, we named the stars, rejoicing in ourselves and in our king. And these, like bright eyes of familiar friends, in on him shone. And then to me, said good Sir Bors, beyond all hopes of mine, who scarce had prayed or asked it for myself, across the 7 clear stars, O grace to me, in colour like the fingers of a hand before a burning taper, the sweet GRAIL glided and passed, and close upon it pealed a sharp, quick thunder. Afterwards a maid who kept our holy faith among her kin, in secret entering, loosed and let him go. To whom the monk, "And I remember now that pelican on the cask. Sir Bors it was who spake so low and sadly at our board, and mighty reverent at our grace he was, a square-set man and honest, and his eyes, an outdoor sign of all the warmth within, smiled with his lips, a smile beneath a cloud, but heaven had meant it for a sunny one. Ay, Sir Bors, who else? But when ye reached the city, found ye all your knights returned, or was there sooth in Arthur's prophecy? Tell me, and what said each, and what the king?" Then answered Percivale, "And that can I, brother, and truly, since the living words of so great men as Launcelot and our king pass not from door to door and out again, but sit within the house. Oh, when we reached the city, our horses stumbling as they trode on heaps of ruin, hornless unicorns, cracked basilisks, and splintered cockatrices, and shattered talbots, which had left the stones raw that they fell from, brought us to the hall. And there sat Arthur on the dais throne, and those that had gone out upon the quest, wasted and worn, and but a tithe of them, and those that had not, stood before the king, who when he saw me rose and bade me hail, saying, "A welfare in thine eye reproves our fear of some disastrous chance for thee on hill or plain, at sea or flooding ford. So fierce a gale made havoc here of late among the strange devices of our kings, yea, shook this newer, stronger hall of ours, and from the statue Merlin moulded for us, half wrenched a golden wing. But now, the quest, this vision, hast thou seen the holy cup that Joseph brought of old to Glastonbury?" So when I told him all thyself hast heard, Ambrosius, and my fresh but fixed resolve to pass away into the quiet life, he answered not, but sharply turning asked of Gawain, "Gawain, was this quest for thee?" "Nay, lord," said Gawain, "not for such as I." Therefore I communed with a saintly man, who made me sure the quest was not for me, for I was much awearied of the quest, but found a silk pavilion in a field, and merry maidens in it, and then this gale tore my pavilion from the tenting pin, and blew my merry maidens all about with all discomfort. Yea, and but for this, my 12-month and a day were pleasant to me." He ceased, and Arthur turned to whom at first he saw not. For Sir Bors, on entering, pushed athwart the throng to Launcelot, caught his hand, held it, and there, half hidden by him, stood, until the king espied him, saying to him, "Hail, Bors! If ever loyal man and true could see it, thou hast seen the GRAIL." And Bors, "Ask me not, for I may not speak of it. I saw it," and the tears were in his eyes. Then there remained but Launcelot, for the rest spake but of sundry perils in the storm. Perhaps, like him of Cana in Holy Writ, our Arthur kept his best until the last. "Thou too, my Launcelot," said the king, "my friend, our mightiest, hath this quest availed for thee?" "Our mightiest," answered Launcelot with a groan. "O king!" And when he paused, methought I spied a dying fire of madness in his eyes. "O king, my friend, if friend of thine I be, happier are those that welter in their sin, swine in the mud, that cannot see for slime of the ditch. But in me there lived a sin so strange, of such a kind, that all of pure, noble, and knightly in me twined and clung round that one sin, until the wholesome flower and poisonous grew together, each as each, not to be plucked asunder. And when thy knights swear, I swear with them only in the hope that could I touch or see the Holy GRAIL, they might be plucked asunder. Then I spake to one most holy saint, who wept and said that save they could be plucked asunder, all my quest were but in vain. To whom I vowed that I would work according as he willed, and forth I went. And while I yearned and strove to tear the twain asunder in my heart, my madness came upon me as of old, and whipped me to waste fields far away. There was I beaten down by little men, mean knights, to whom the moving of my sword and shadow of my spear had been enow to scare them from me once. And then I came all in my folly to the naked shore, wide flats, where nothing but coarse grasses grew. But such a blast, my king, began to blow, so loud a blast along the shore and sea, ye could not hear the waters for the blast, though heaped in mounds and ridges all the sea drove like a cataract, and all the sand swept like a river, and the clouded heavens were shaken with the motion and the sound. And blackening in the sea foam swayed a boat, half swallowed in it, anchored with a chain. And in my madness to myself I said, I will embark, and I will lose myself, and in the great sea wash away my sin. I burst the chain. I sprang into the boat. 7 days I drove along the dreary deep, and with me drove the moon and all the stars. And the wind fell. And on the 7th night I heard the shingle grinding in the surge, and felt the boat shock earth. And looking up, behold, the enchanted towers of Carbonek, a castle like a rock upon a rock, with chasm-like portals open to the sea, and steps that met the breaker. There was none stood near it but a lion on each side that kept the entry, and the moon was full. Then from the boat I leapt, and up the stairs. There drew my sword. With sudden flaring manes those 2 great beasts rose upright like a man. Each gripped a shoulder, and I stood between, and when I would have smitten them, heard a voice, Doubt not, go forward. If thou doubt, the beasts will tear thee piecemeal. Then with violence the sword was dashed from out my hand, and fell, and up into the sounding hall I passed. But nothing in the sounding hall I saw, no bench or table, painting on the wall or shield of night, only the rounded moon through the tall oriel on the rolling sea. But always in the quiet house I heard, clear as a lark, high o'er me as a lark, a sweet voice singing in the topmost tower to the eastward. Up I climbed 1,000 steps with pain. As in a dream I seemed to climb for ever. At the last I reached a door. A light was in the crannies, and I heard, Glory and joy and honour to our Lord and to the holy vessel of the GRAIL. Then, in my madness, I essayed the door. It gave, and through a stormy glare, a heat as from a 7 times heated furnace, I, blasted and burnt and blinded as I was, with such a fierceness that I swooned away. Oh, yet methought I saw the Holy GRAIL, all palled in crimson samite, and around great angels, awful shapes, and wings and eyes, and but for all my madness and my sin, and then my swooning, I had sworn I saw that which I saw. But what I saw was veiled and covered, and this quest was not for me. So speaking, and here ceasing, Lancelot left the hall long silent, till Sir Gawain, Nay, brother, I need not tell thee foolish words. A reckless and irreverent knight was he, now boldened by the silence of his king. Well, I will tell thee. O king, my liege, he said, hath Gawain failed in any quest of thine? When have I stinted stroke in fort and field? But as for thine, my good friend Percivale, thy holy nun, and thou have driven men mad. Yea, made our mightiest madder than our least. But by mine eyes and by mine ears I swear I will be deafer than the blue-eyed cat. and thrice as blind as any noonday owl to holy virgins in their ecstasies henceforward. Deafer, said the blameless King Gawain, and blinder unto holy things, hope not to make thyself by idle vows, being too blind to have desire to see. But if indeed there came a sign from heaven, blessed are Bors, Lancelot, and Percivale, for these have seen according to their sight. For every fiery prophet in old times, and all the sacred madness of the bard, when God made music through them, would but speak his music by the framework and the chord. And as ye saw it, ye have spoken truth. Nay, but thou errest, Lancelot. Never yet could all of one true and noble in knight and man twine round one sin, whatever it might be, with such a closeness. But apart there grew, save that he were the swine thou spakest of, some root of knighthood and pure nobleness, whereto seest thou that it may bear its flower. And spake I not too truly, O my knights? Was I too dark a prophet when I said to those who went upon the holy quest, that most of them would follow wandering fires, lost in the quagmire? Lost to me and gone, and left me gazing at a barren board and a lean order, scarce returned a tithe. And out of those to whom the vision came, my greatest hardly will believe he saw. Another hath beheld it afar off, and leaving human wrongs to right themselves, cares but to pass into the silent life. And one hath had the vision face to face, and now his chair desires him here in vain, however they may crown him otherwhere. And some among you held that if the king had seen the sight, he would have sworn the vow, seeing that the king must guard that which he rules, and is but as the hind to whom a space of land is given to plough, who may not wander from the allotted field before his work be done. But being done, let visions of the night or of the day come as they will, and many a time they come, until this earth he walks on seems not earth, this light that strikes his eyeball is not light, this air that smites his forehead is not air but vision, yea, his very hand and foot. In moments when he feels he cannot die, and knows himself no vision to himself, nor the high God of vision, nor that one who rose again. Ye have seen what ye have seen. So spake the king. I knew not all he meant.